tutorial, I'm going to run through the techniques used in the sweater behind me on the mannequin here. It's called Undulating Lines, and it's designed by Stella Egidi. I hope I got that right, the pronunciation right. This tutorial is sponsored by Mountain Meadow Wool. It uses their alpine merino wool, a beautiful yarn. And I know it's not very easy to see this on the mannequin, so let's cut away to the image on the model. It is a beautiful sweater, and the yarn is beautiful, of course, and it looks like a really complicated thing with a cable needle. No cable needle required. It's pretty amazing. This is an intermediate sweater, and I do recommend having a pretty solid understanding of knitting and pattern reading before you attempt this. But I will say that the construction of this is a top-down raglan. So even if you are an experienced knitter, but maybe not super confident with knitting garments, top-down raglans are the way to go. It's the easiest way to get a perfect fit on a sweater and not have to worry about it. It's my, obviously, favorite style of knitting sweaters. The sizes are there are 6 sizes, from 36 to 55 inches in the bust, and we're going to talk about the sizes in just a minute. The yarn is this alpine DK weight, and Mountain Meadow Wool has kits available for this sweater. It includes the yarn and the pattern. If you would like to get your kit ordered to follow along with the video, just click the little I in the upper right-hand corner to go to my website, where I will have that all linked out. I will also provide a link in the video description field below on YouTube. And I have a few of the colors that will be in the kits here, and I say will be because as of shooting this video, Mountain Meadow Wool is still putting together the kits and building the kits and getting them up on their website. But this is the color that I used, which is the natural cream. And these colors, don't look at that, that's something else. This is what we're looking at here. These colors will really show off the detail work on the yoke, because you don't want to use a super dark color, it's not going to show as well. So that's the color I use, the natural cream. This one is hand-dyed rose. Gosh, this is such a pretty color. This one is hand-dyed sand. And this lilac color here is called Pasque Flower. This one's already wound up because I used it in a sample. And this yarn has a nice tight twist on the plies, which means that the stitch detail and the knit through the back loops, everything really shows up in this yarn. Really a smooth yarn, so it's not fuzzing or anything over the details. Really a perfect yarn for this sweater. Also, this is the kind of yarn that you don't run into it all the time, but it's the kind of yarn that when you're knitting with it, your hands feel better for knitting with it. Like, it's that tiny bit of lanolin in the wool that leaves your skin feeling so soft and perfect and nice. I really enjoyed knitting this sweater. And it does look like a really complicated thing to knit, but I'm going to show you it's really not as hard to knit. So let me tell you what we're going to cover in this video. We're going to talk about swatching. I still want to talk about sizes here in this intro. We're going to talk about the construction of the raglan. We're going to talk about chart reading and the stitches used in the chart. There is some short row back shaping on the upper back in this sweater. We're going to talk about that. And also I'll go over how to work this really nice finishing of the turned hem that's at the bottom of the sleeves and the bottom of the sweater. Now let's talk about sizing. As I mentioned, there are 6 sizes, and from 36 inches to 55 inches, and different patterns handle this differently, so I want to be sure that we're all clear before you pick your size. This is the actual sweater measurement, not necessarily the body measurement. So in the picture that I showed you, the model is wearing the 36, the smallest size, but she is actually a 32 bust measurement. So the sweater is shown with 4 inches of positive ease. So that's what you're going to do. You're going to take your own measurement, add 4 inches, and then pick the size that's closest to that number. And because it's a top-down raglan, we can, mess with the sizing a little bit to get it just the way that you want it, but that's where you want to start. The sweater, the sizes listed in the pattern are the actual sweater size. and the model is wearing it with 4 inches of positive ease. You can wear it tighter or looser. I mean, it's up to you, but that's how it's shown in the pattern photo. Okay, so up next we are going to get started on really most of the techniques used in this sweater. And if you're at all unsure about whether you can, if your skill level is up for this, just go ahead and watch the video, and I think you'll get a pretty good idea. So we'll get started with some of the techniques next. Okay, we are ready to get started on this. The first thing we're going to do is take a close-up look at this sweater. So let's go ahead and take a look. Okay, the first thing we'll take a look at is the sweater and an up-close look at the lines in the sweater. I posted this on social media and someone said it looks like ski tracks through the snow. And it does. It's very pretty, and it's amazing that it doesn't use a cable needle. And something I'll show you while we're here is this. Whenever I have a pullover sweater and it's not easy to tell the front from the back, I always tie a little something like where the tag would go in store-bought clothes, a little something to mark the back of the sweater so I can see it easily. So I don't put it on backwards. Okay, first thing we will talk about, let me get to my notes here. First thing we'll talk about is swatching. And here is my swatch. In the sweater, we use 2 different needle sizes, and the swatch is done using the larger of the 2 needle sizes. I always put a border on my swatch. You don't have to. I just like it when it's laying out flat and it's easy to see. And then you can just use a regular ruler. I have this swatch ruler that is showing that my stitch gauge is on perfectly. My row gauge is off a little bit. That's okay. I washed and blocked, set this out flat to dry before I measured it. You always want to do that so you know how the exact size your sweater will be when you're finished. And the reason that my row gauge doesn't matter as much is in most patterns, not all patterns, in most pattern, stitch gauge is what's going to be really important. The pattern, this pattern included, doesn't say knit X number of rows for length. It says knit X number of inches for length. So row gauge ends up not being that important. So definitely swatch to make sure that you are getting the right gauge. And now we will talk about raglan construction. And I knit up this tiny little doll-sized raglan sweater. And obviously it's not in the pattern, it's in a traditional raglan sweater at 4 increase points. It's not even in the yarn. This is a worsted weight yarn that I'm using here. And I just knit this up so we can talk about the construction. Now with a raglan sweater, you cast on at the neckline, and in most raglan sweaters, you increase at points in the sweater, 4 points at least. And in the undulating line sweater, the increases are worked into the pattern, so you don't see lines like this. But you work the shoulders and the front and the sleeves all at once, and then you get to a point in the sweater where it tells you to separate the sleeves. And it gives you some instructions for that. You knit up to a point and it'll tell you exactly how many stitches. You slip those stitches onto scrap yarn and then continue knitting the front of the sweater, slip the other sleeve onto scrap yarn. And before you do that, this is where raglan sweaters are really very sweet, because you can try on the sweater to make sure it's going to fit. You might want to give the knitting you have so far a little steam, because you have some purl stitches in there that it'll lay out flatter once you have given it. Well, let me just show you that right now. Here's my blocked pattern with some dog hair on it, and here it is before blocking. You see it's kind of bunched up compared to the way it looks when it's finished. So you can actually slip all of these stitches onto long circular needles or scrap yarn. Give it some steam with a steam iron without pressing down on the fabric. Give it a little tug, get it stretched out, then try it on. If you can match the sweater under your arms, match the 2 points of the sweater under your arms, then you know you have a good fit. If it's still too small, you want to continue knitting for a while, you can do that. Make sure you have a perfect fit. And then when you've finished, you're just going to knit the body. You'll go back and finish the sleeves later. When you've finished knitting the body, you can slip it to scrap yarn or a long circular needle and try it on again. Make sure you have the length that you like. So easy to fit a top-down raglan sweater. I love them. Okay, let's look at I'm getting a mess over here. Let's look at the chart. I have a little bit of the chart here, and it is a pattern repeat that you repeat over and over again, the whole length of the yoke. And we have some pretty simple stitches in there. Knit one through the back loop, purl, knit two together, SSK, make one right, make one left. And then maybe not as familiar, make one right purl and make one left purl. We're going to talk about those. So when you're working this chart, you'll see that, excuse me, the back door is open so the dogs can go in and out. I'm afraid some pollen's getting in. You'll see that the edges of the chart move around a bit. I let that confuse me a little bit. Work the chart as if it is a box. You don't have to change the beginning of your round or anything. I've seen it in charts before where it moves like this and it's telling you to change the beginning of your round each time. It doesn't matter. All of these purl stitches here, they all line up with each other in the chart. I think the reason the chart is written like this is because some of the main lines of the pattern line up with the chart like this. And so the increases and decreases are shown on the edges of the chart. Okay, let's take a look at the actual knitting here. And I am on round 20. I might have to stop and get a drink of water here. I'm on round 20 and we're going to talk about the make one left purl, make one right purl. So on round 20, I'm going to purl, and all the knit stitches in the yoke are through the back loop. And now I'm going to do a make one left purl. And if you're familiar with make one right, make one left, I hope you are, you use this bar to increase. You make a stitch into the bar between two stitches. And for a make one left, you put your left needle into that bar from front to back. For a make one right, you put your needle into that bar from back to front. I always use my right needle to help out with that, you see there. And for the purl stitches, it's the same way. Pick up the bar, put the needle in from front to back for a make one left. And for a make one left, you would, in a knit stitch, you would just put your needle through that back loop, right? For a purl, we're still going to put our needle through that back loop, but instead of approaching it this way, we're going to approach the stitch this way. This is the most complicated stitch in the whole pattern. That's why I wanted to show it to you. I want to get my needle in this way. This is how I'm going to do that. I'm going to yarn forward because it's a purl stitch. I'm going to create some slack on that stitch with my first finger and then come in right at the bottom there where there's a little bit of space. Wrap it and pull it through to the back because it's a purl. Ta-da, we've got our make one purl. Make one left purl. Yes. Okay. I'm going to work a little bit more of the pattern here to get away from that. Okay, let's do a make one right purl. It's not actually in the pattern right here, but I'm going to put one in there for us. I'm going to pull the bar up between the two stitches, put my needle in from back to front. My yarn is in front for a purl stitch, and this one's much easier to work. You just work it like a purl stitch. Isn't this pretty? This is the Pasque flower color, hand-dyed yarn. Okay, those are the stitches. What are we going to work next? We're going to work German short rows. Okay, let's take a look at the sweater. Find the back of it. That was a dog shaking off from coming in from the rain. And you can't even see the short row shaping. The German short rows are so nice. Maybe you can right there a little bit. After blocking, it just smooths out. German short rows are so nice. If you haven't knit a sock pattern using them or any short row shaping using them, you're in for a treat. I'm going to show you how to do those here. I have this little sample. Oh, it's really coming down now outside. That's probably coming through on the microphone. I have this little sample here, and the reason that I can demonstrate this on a flat piece is because it's short rows. We're working back and forth in rows. You're actually going to turn the work and work on the purl side. And when you're working on the sweater, your marker is at the center of the back. So that's where the marker is here. And you'll follow your pattern for the number of stitches. I'm just going to show you the technique. You'll knit a number of stitches past the first marker, and then it will tell you to work a German short row. So knit that stitch, turn the work, slip that stitch back over to the right needle, and then pull up on it. And it gives you a funny little double stitch. You see that there? Yarn forward, because we're going to work a purl row. You'll purl back over the center marker. The number of stitches the pattern tells you. And it'll tell you to work a GSR, because we're going to keep it balanced on the two sides. So you purl that stitch, turn the work, yarn forward, slip that stitch, and pull up on it, and you get a funny little double stitch again. It looks different than the other side. Actually, do I want to yarn forward first? Yeah. And then you'll knit up to the German short row turn that you did. And you'll get to it, it's pretty obvious because it's this funny double stitch. You'll knit those two together and then knit some more stitches. I'm just going to knit a couple and work another GSR. And we'll do this on the knit side again. You knit the stitch, turn your work, slip that stitch, pull up on it to make a funny little double stitch, and then yarn forward to start purling. And on the purl side, you will knit up to the funny little double stitch that you just made. It is slow going when it's this humid with the back door open, thunderstorm happening outside on bamboo needles. I can hear the AC just kicked on. Maybe it'll... Okay, so now I have, I shouldn't have yarned forward first. We'll do that again. I have the funny little double... Nope, I messed that up. I am sorry. The double stitch looks funny in this thick yarn. Just purl that double stitch together, purl more stitches, and we're going to work the GSR again on this side. Purl that stitch, turn the work, yarn forward, slip that stitch, pull up on it to give yourself a funny little double stitch. And then you'll knit up to the GSR, and the pattern is really well written. It gives you exactly what you need to know when you're going to hit the double stitch, but you can see it's pretty easy to see. You knit that double stitch together as one, and you'll just keep knitting and work another GSR. And you do that back and forth, and you end up with more fabric, balanced on the two sides around the marker. So you get a little extra length in the back of the sweater, and it gets wider and wider to give you a really good fit, and that is German short rows. Is that all we had for this? Okay, we are almost finished. We're going to talk about the beautiful finished edge on the sweater and a little bit about washing and blocking. Let's take a look. Okay, to work the turned hem, let's pull this in first. Here is the awesome turned hem. You can see it's such a nice finishing technique. And I'm thinking that mine Mine isn't quite as smooth looking at the point of the turn as it is in the pattern. I think when I block this again, when I wash this again, or I might just get, I'll just give it a little steam. And I think I can get that to flatten out. I didn't focus on it as much as I did the yoke of the sweater, but there's no reason that that can't lay as flat as it did in the pattern. I'm still really happy with the way it looks, no doubt. It is a beautiful finish. And we have this on the sleeves as well as the bottom of the sweater. So we're going to talk about doing that. And I have this super clunky looking piece. Now we just finished looking at the beautiful, delicate sweater. This looks so clunky. Okay, to get you understanding where we are with this, this is my sweater. The top of my sweater is here. I've knit down to the bottom of my sweater. The pattern tells you to purl around and then to knit 5 more rounds. So that's the purl line, and at the purl line is where this folds over. See how perfectly that folds over? Isn't that nice? So the thing we have to do is to get this connected to this, and you can just use a tapestry needle and stitch it down. You'll find that that has less elasticity than we really want at the bottom of a sweater. We're pulling it over our hips. So we're going to do what kind of ends up being a 3-needle bind off to get this connected to this. And first, this is what I like to do. You don't have to do it. I found it was easier for me to keep track of where I was. I like to mark the stitches that I'm picking up as I go across this row. So to do that, count garter stitch ridges. 1, 2, 3, 4. You're going to pick up from this one, 5. And so I'm going to mark the row above it with a piece of colored yarn, so that when I'm working on this, I won't have to count up 4 each time. I can just know that I'm picking up from below this line. And I'll tell you, I didn't run this through the whole sweater all at once. I ran it through a little, bound off a little, ran it through a little, bound off a little. So I didn't need a really long piece of yarn. Okay, so that's really easy to see. I know I'm going to pick up from this row here. 1, 2, 3, 4. That's the row I want to pick up from. And actually what I'm going to do is I'm not going to start at the edge here, because you won't have an edge when you're doing this on your sweater, because we're working in the round, right? Okay, so this is more like an example of what you'll see when you do this. Now the next thing I want to do is I want to make sure that I'm lining this up in the right column. So this is what I did. I took something pointy, the tapestry needle I just used, and followed it down and poked it through, and then looked at this side. And this is where I want to start picking up. That's the first stitch that I want to pick up. And as I'm looking at this, I know that I have the row above it marked. I want to pick up from this row. And in garter stitch ridges, we have smiles and umbrellas, smiles and umbrellas. I'm going to continue along here picking up smile, 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 smile. So kind of the bottom of the garter stitch ridge. But this is the one that I want. So I'm going to pick up that stitch, put it on the needle, and knit those 2 together. Pick up that stitch, put it on the needle, knit those 2 together, and then bind off 1 stitch over the other. Pick up that smile on the needle, knit those 2 together, bind it off. Now you see, I totally let go of the left needle each time. I want a flat surface when I'm looking at this. It's slow going. I'm not going to pretend that it's not. This is a slow going bind off for sure, but what a beautiful finish you get. So I let go of the left needle. I hold the work so that it's flat. I can see where the next smile is. Put it on the needle, knit those 2 together, bind off 1 stitch over the other. And it's slow going, but I'll tell you, when I was doing it, it seemed to go faster than I expected it to. It did. I know that sounds crazy. It's slow going, but it wasn't as slow going as I thought it would be. And you see here, you have plenty of elasticity here. It's not stiff the way it would be if you stitched it down. You have a beautiful fold at the bottom. And as you work across, you can just pull this, if you choose to do the scrap yarn thing, you can just pull this out when you don't need it anymore and run further across when you do need more of it. That is the turned hem bind off. Okay, that's how to work the turned hem. I want to talk a little bit about washing and blocking this sweater. And this is a beautiful merino wool. It's going to block out really easily, really nicely without a lot of work from you. But the because there are purl stitches in the yoke area, I did give it a little bit of a tug while it was wet to let it dry that way. And that really lets the pattern it really lets the pattern show, because it is, with the purl stitches, it does get a little bit more bunched up, not in any weird way or anything. You see it comes out really nicely, but give that a little bit of a tug so that it matches with the rest of the sweater. You won't have to use any pins or anything to get this to lie flat. You really just get it set to the measurements that you want it, set it out flat to dry. I let it dry like that for a little while and flip it over. I used a wool wash and lukewarm water and soaked it. And something that I always do is, after it's done soaking in the wool wash for about a half an hour or so, I take it and I put it into the washing machine and just run the spin cycle. No agitating or anything, just the spin cycle. And I don't even run it for the whole spin cycle, just get most of the water out, and then I set it out flat to dry. And I'll tell you, because this is knit top down, you have the sweater, you know, the neckline of the sweater is like in your lap the whole time that you're working it. My neckline, because I have a puppy in the house, the neckline actually did get pretty dirty, but it cleaned up beautifully with the time that it spent in the wool wash. Okay, again, if you still need to order your kit that includes the yarn and the pattern, click the little eye in the upper right-hand corner. That'll take you to my website. Many thanks to Mountain Meadow Wool for letting us work on this beautiful sweater. It was a lot of fun. I'm excited to have this sweater to wear in the wintertime. Enjoy the knit. Good luck.